Congressman, I want to ask you about this. You know, at the time you and I are speaking, the Republicans have nominated Congressman Mike Johnson for House Speaker. He will go for a vote on the House floor. Do you expect him to be elected the next Speaker of the House?
I actually do. And you've been through, I know, maybe surprising, right? And maybe at this point, we're not going to believe it until we see it. But I was in the meeting last night that went till 11 p.m. and not one Republican member of the House conference voted against him yesterday. Three voted present. All three of them this morning have switched to a yes on him. So at the moment, literally every Republican member of Congress supports him.
Well, let me ask you about why that is. What is different about Mike Johnson? Actually, I want to ask you, and you don't. I know that these are your colleagues, and I feel like so much of what we've witnessed over the last couple of weeks, which is the longest we've gone, I believe, since the 1800s without a House Speaker.
Right.
I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe a lot of it is about personality, and it's become personal for so many, as much as it is ideological. But so then, what makes Mike Johnson? And he got, by the way, President Trump's endorsement. What makes him different than, say, Tom Emmer? Tom Emmer, who yesterday, as we're talking, did not. He withdrew after it was clear he was not going to become the next House Speaker.
Yeah, it's all the above, honestly. It's personal, as you mentioned. It's political. Someone who can make sure we maintain the majority and expand the majority. You got to go out there and make sure you can get your folks reelected. And policy, a conservative. And that's that's the mix you're looking for. I'm a conservative Republican. I'm in the Freedom Caucus. There are some moderate Republicans who sadly didn't want Jim Jordan. I was a huge fan of Jim Jordan. I think Jim Jordan would have been a great speaker. I backed Jim Jordan 100%. But 20 or 25 folks just didn't want him. And I think it was more because he was viewed as too conservative for them. And that's sad. I disagree with that completely.
Was that an issue of policy? Yeah. Was it an issue of ideology? Or was it sort of back to the personal side? There's clearly a lot of people that were upset with the move from Congressman Matt Gaetz, and that would have been seen as giving him a victory if Jim Jordan became House Speaker, and they didn't want to give that victory. I'm asking you this, and they wanted to deny that victory to Congressman Gaetz.
Well, no, I'll just tell you what people said. So when Jim Jordan got up and he'd been voted no longer to be our nominee, so he was leaving, he said, everyone who voted against me, the 25 people who voted against him, kept telling him that it was not personal. Although Jim Jordan said it sure feels personal when they're not voting for you.
Right.
So, but I'll take people at their word. It wasn't personal. I think he's viewed rightly as a conservative firebrand who's a fighter, much like Trump. And there are some who didn't want that. They didn't want the Speaker of the House to be that out front as a conservative fighter. Now, I vehemently disagree with that. I'm just telling you what I saw from them. But it wasn't personal. Everybody likes Jim Jordan. I don't know one person who doesn't personally very much admire and like Jim Jordan. He's super popular in this country, probably the most popular Republican member of Congress, not even a close second in my opinion, because what he's done as Judiciary Chairman, being a strong leader for many years in Congress. But I think it was partially that he was in some people's minds too conservative, and also Steve Scalise didn't get it either. So McCarthy was removed by 8 people. Then Steve Scalise, he actually withdrew, so we never did see a floor vote on that.
Right.
But he withdrew because he perceived he didn't have the support. So I think it's true that some people may have also felt, well, now we're going to, put in this guy who's really conservative when they didn't give us the guys we wanted. So it was a little bit of that back and forth.
And now we're on our 5th try?
Now we're on our 5th try. So I think it's gone back and forth enough now.
Scalise, Jordan, Emmer. Am I right now?
Yeah.
Johnson is the next.
If you count McCarthy, who was removed, McCarthy, Scalise, Jordan, Emmer. McCarthy, Scalise, Jordan, Emmer. So we're on 5. I think there's been enough back and forth that everyone said, okay. Now I will tell you, Mike Johnson, I know him. He was elected 2 years after me. He used to run the Republican Study Committee. He's a conservative man. So on the policy, when it comes to spending and getting like things we were talking about, getting spending under control and reining in the government that wants to control us and spy on us and play games with the economy. Mike Johnson's conservative. He's as conservative as Jim Jordan. He is. I don't think there's much difference on policy between Mike Johnson, Jim Jordan, me, Donald Trump, and he's a conservative man. So, and most Republican members of Congress are conservative. When Mike Johnson ran the Republican Study Committee, that's the majority of Congress is in that, like 150 members out of 220 are in the Republican Study Committee, which is a conservative group. And so we wanted a conservative, and folks who are less conservative, I think, felt he was I don't know, low key enough, if you know, lack of a better word, not as abrasive, not as out front as a Jim Jordan, and thought, well, you know, he's fine. So all the New York Republicans voted for him, for example. The others who didn't vote for Jim Jordan on the House floor all voted for him. And I think also, like you said, it's the 5th time, right? So we can keep doing this. We've gone through 4, and we're going to go through 4 more. And then on November 17th, we have a government shutdown because we haven't passed our spending bills like we should have. So we can't keep doing this. Look, we're big boys and girls. We understand we can't keep doing this. We had to pick someone.
So that's going to be my last question for you. Is like if Congressman Johnson was sort of the right guy, it seems to be the right guy to get everybody's votes. Why isn't he the first guy that was nominated? But from what I hear, he's the right guy. But it also, the process required that both sides, the very conservative and the moderate Republicans, sort of try to get their maximalist position before coming to this compromise. Is that a fair characterization? Before finding this Goldilocks zone, take that and combine it with exhaustion and the necessity of a House Speaker?
Yeah, we had to find someone that no one had a personal or political objection to, who was, you know, likable and conservative. And I would say, like, I guess for, you know, when McCarthy was removed, which I did not support, of course, I did not support that move, but it happened, then the next person you look at is a majority leader. If you're sort of going in line in order, you have a majority leader who's elected as the number 2 guy, the head of the majority party. So you would look to Steve Scalise. Most of the supporters of McCarthy and the establishment, if you will, would look to Steve Scalise next. He withdrew. So Jim Jordan, you know, got the votes in conference, but they wouldn't vote for him on the floor. So you went to the next person in line, which was Tom Emmer, who's the whip, and he withdrew yesterday. So you went through all 3 leaders, McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, Tom Emmer. You went through everyone in leadership. They're out. So at this point, you had to go to someone not in leadership, not in those leadership positions. So it was jump ball. I was actually here when this happened, 8 years ago, when John Boehner stepped down as Speaker of the House. I was in the room. Boehner resigned, said he was going to resign. McCarthy was supposed to, shortly after, become Speaker. He withdrew, if you may recall. He withdrew as a Speaker candidate, and we were in the same position. And we all looked around like, who's going to jump in there now? And we didn't really have a candidate. Finally, we all started looking at Paul Ryan, who had been the vice presidential nominee. And everyone loved Paul Ryan. I mean, what's not to love about Paul Ryan? He's a great man, good conservative, was very politically savvy, but he didn't want to do it. So he said no. And we spent a couple of weeks not having a Speaker candidate. And then Paul Ryan finally said, yeah, I'll do it. And we put him in there. So we had someone to look at. I mean, but there wasn't a Paul Ryan sitting around when McCarthy was removed as Speaker. There wasn't someone who we all could automatically go to as sort of a natural person. We had to go through and look at 8 people ran, different people kept running, and look, it's a democratic process. You have
I don't
an election.
think it's, I don't think it's as embarrassing as everyone wants to believe.
No,
and hopefully it's produced we'll see, we'll find out with the floor vote, but hopefully it's produced a House Speaker that can not only bring the Republican caucus together and govern, but in a more healthy, representative way of the American people. Congressman Mooney, thanks for talking about central bank digital currencies and the House Speaker vote with us today. Appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.